Maya Collins floated in the zero-gravity training room, trying not to throw up. She had been on the alien ship for 3 days now, and her stomach still felt like it was doing flips. The other crew members moved around her like she was invisible. They were all aliens, tall lizard people, bug-like creatures with too many arms, and things that looked like walking trees. She was the only human on the ship called Starfall. Back home in Portland, Oregon, everyone had been so excited when she got picked for the exchange program. First human to serve on an alien warship, the news reports had said. A chance to show the galaxy what humans can do. Right now, Maya felt like she was showing them how humans could mess up simple tasks. "Human Collins," came a voice that sounded like rocks grinding together. Maya turned to see Commander Zixtile, the ship's second in command. He was 8 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. "Report to Maintenance Bay 7. The cleaning units need repair." Maya nodded and pushed off the wall to float toward the door. This was her life now, fixing broken cleaning robots and trying not to get in anyone's way. She had been a mechanic in the Army for 4 years before this. She could take apart any vehicle made on Earth and put it back together blindfolded. But alien technology was different. Everything had too many buttons, made weird sounds, and sometimes seemed to work by magic instead of science. The hallways of the Starfall were huge and empty. Maya's boots clicked on the metal floor as she walked. The gravity here was lighter than Earth, so she had to be careful not to bounce with each step. Alien writing covered the walls in flowing symbols that hurt her eyes to look at. The ship felt cold and unfriendly, nothing like the warm human ships she had trained on. Maintenance Bay 7 was a mess. 3 cleaning robots sat broken in the corner, their metal arms twisted and sparking. Maya sighed and pulled out her toolkit. At least fixing things was something she understood. She had been working for an hour when she heard voices in the hallway. 2 of the bug-like aliens were talking in their clicking language. Maya had learned enough to understand some words. "Weak," one of them clicked. "Humans are weak." "Why did Captain bring this one?" "Politics," the other replied. "Make humans feel important. Soon they learn their place." Maya's hands tightened on her wrench. She had heard talk like this before, back in the Army when she was the only woman in her unit. Men who thought she couldn't do the job because she was small and different. She had proved them wrong then by working twice as hard as anyone else, but this was different. Here, she wasn't just a woman in a man's world. She was a human in an alien galaxy, and everyone seemed to think humans were nothing special. The cleaning robot buzzed to life. As Maya connected the last wire, at least something was going right today. She moved to the next broken machine and started taking it apart. Work was good. Work kept her mind busy and her hands moving. Captain Veltar found her 2 hours later, still fixing robots. The captain was from a race that looked like walking fish with arms and legs. His skin was blue-green and always wet, and he spoke through a device that made his words sound like bubbles popping. "Human Collins," he said, his mechanical voice echoing in the bay. "How do you find life on Starfall?" Maya looked up from the robot she was working on. The captain had never talked to her directly before. "It's different, sir. Everything is bigger here, more complex." "Yes," the captain nodded. "Our technology is advanced. Perhaps too advanced for your species to understand fully." Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "I'm learning, sir. These robots work differently than Earth machines, but the basic ideas are the same. Everything needs power, everything has moving parts, everything can break and be fixed." The captain made a sound like water gurgling. Maya wasn't sure if it was laughter or something else. "Humans are ... optimistic. This is not always useful in space. Space is dangerous. Space does not care about your feelings or your hopes." "No, sir," Maya agreed. "But space doesn't care about anyone's feelings. Human, alien, doesn't matter. The vacuum will kill you just the same." For a moment the captain was quiet, then he made that gurgling sound again. "Perhaps?" "Continue your work, Human Collins. Try not to break anything important." After he left, Maya went back to fixing robots. She thought about what he had said. Humans were optimistic. Was that supposed to be a bad thing? On Earth, being hopeful and positive was good. It meant you kept trying when things got hard. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe aliens didn't understand that humans didn't give up. When something seemed impossible, humans just tried harder. When everyone said it couldn't be done, humans found a way to do it anyway. Maya finished fixing the third robot and watched it roll away to start cleaning. 3 broken machines now working again. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maybe that was enough for now. She packed up her tools and headed back to her small room. Tomorrow would bring more broken things to fix, more alien voices telling. Her humans were weak and useless. But Maya Collins had been dealing with people who underestimated her all her life. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, she would show the entire galaxy exactly what humans could do when pushed. To the edge. The quiet, polite girl from Portland was about to become something that would haunt alien nightmares for generations. But for now, she just wanted to eat dinner and get some sleep. Space was big and cold and lonely, but Maya Collins was still here, still working, still human. And that, as the galaxy was about to learn, was more dangerous than anyone could imagine. The alarm started screaming at 0800 ship time. Maya was in the maintenance bay, drinking coffee that tasted like metal and trying to fix another broken cleaning robot. The sound was so loud and sharp that she dropped her wrench and covered her ears. Red lights flashed everywhere. The ship's voice spoke in the alien language, words Maya couldn't understand, but that sounded urgent and scared. Then it switched to basic galactic common, the simple language all species used to talk to each other. All crew to battle stations. We are under attack. This is not a drill. Maya's blood went cold. Attack meant pirates or worse. She had heard stories about what happened to ships that got caught by raiders. The crew got sold as slaves if they were lucky. If they weren't lucky, they got killed slowly for entertainment. She started toward the door, but it slammed shut with a metal clang. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red. Maya pushed the door button, but nothing happened. The ship's computer had locked everything down. Emergency bulkheads activated, the voice said. All sections sealed until threat is eliminated. Maya was trapped. She looked around the maintenance bay with new eyes. It was a big room full of spare parts, broken machines, and tools. Not much to work with if pirates came looking for her. The ship shook hard, throwing Maya against the wall. She heard the deep boom of weapons hitting the hull. Then another shake, and another. Someone was shooting at them with big guns. Maya crawled to the wall panel and tried to access the ship's systems. Her hands were shaking, but she managed to pull up a basic display. What she saw made her stomach drop. 3 pirate ships had surrounded them. They were firing missiles to disable the engines and weapons, not destroy the ship. They wanted to take it intact. That meant boarding parties. That meant they would send armed raiders to take control of the ship and capture the crew alive. Another explosion, closer this time. Maya heard metal tearing and air rushing. They had blown a hole in the hull somewhere near her section. The ship's emergency systems kicked in, sealing the breach with force fields, but the damage was done. They were inside. Maya grabbed her toolkit and looked for a place to hide. The maintenance bay had lots of big machines and storage units, but nowhere that would really keep her safe. If pirates came looking, they would find her. She was thinking about this when she heard the sound that changed everything. Metal on metal, like something heavy hitting the hull right above her, then cutting sounds. High-energy tools slicing through. The ship's armor, they were cutting their way directly into her section, Maya's army. Training kicked in without her thinking about it. 4 years of combat drills and weapons practice that she thought she would never need. Her sergeant had always said the same thing. When the shooting starts, you don't think, you move. You find cover, you stay alive. She grabbed the biggest wrench from her toolkit and crouched behind a power coupling unit. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it over the alarm. The cutting sounds got louder. Sparks started falling from the ceiling as they burned through the metal. A section of the ceiling fell away with a crash. Smoke poured through the hole, and Maya heard voices speaking in a language that sounded like angry dogs barking. Heavy boots hit the floor. The first pirate dropped through the hole, and Maya got her first look at what she was facing. It was huge, at least 7 feet tall and covered in thick scales. It had 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. Its head was long and narrow like a snake, with teeth that glowed in the emergency lighting. This was a Vrakan, one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy. They were genetically modified for combat, bred to be perfect killers. Their bones were reinforced with metal. Their muscles were enhanced with chemicals. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than human normal. Maya had heard stories about them. How they never took prisoners unless they planned to sell them. How they could tear apart steel with their bare hands. How they saw other species as either prey or obstacles to remove. The creature swept the room with its main weapon, some kind of energy rifle that hummed with power. It clicked and barked to others above, probably telling them the room looked empty. Maya stayed perfectly still behind her cover. Maybe it would leave. Maybe it would decide the room wasn't worth searching. The Vrakan took a step forward, then another. It was being careful, professional. It knew someone might be hiding down here. 2 more pirates dropped through the hole, just as big and scary as the first. Maya closed her eyes and tried to think. 3 armed professionals against 1 human. With a wrench. The smart thing to do was surrender. Maybe they would just lock her up instead of killing her, but then she remembered the stories. What Vrakan pirates did to prisoners, especially small weak ones like humans. How they thought torture was funny. How they bet on how long someone would scream before they died. Maya opened her eyes and looked at the wrench in her hand. It was a plasma cutter designed to slice through metal pipes and cables. The tool was old and simple, but the cutting beam was still hot enough to melt steel. The first pirate was 10 feet away now, moving slowly through the room. Its back was to Maya, as it checked behind a storage unit. She could see the place where its neck armor didn't quite cover the skin underneath. Maya Collins had never killed anything bigger than a spider in her entire life. She had joined the army as a mechanic, not infantry. She had never been in combat. Never shot at another living thing, but she was human. And humans, when pushed to the very edge, when facing something that wanted to hurt them and everyone they cared about, could do things that surprised even themselves. Maya moved without thinking. 4 years of army PT had made her fast and quiet. She came up behind the pirate like a ghost, raised the plasma cutter, and pressed it against that gap in its armor. The tool cut through alien flesh like butter. The creature made a sound like steam escaping and dropped to the floor without another noise. Maya grabbed its weapon before it hit the ground. The rifle was heavy and warm, covered in alien writing she couldn't read. But weapons were simple. You pointed them at what you wanted to kill and pulled the trigger. The second pirate turned toward the sound and Maya shot at center mass. The energy bolt burned a hole through its chest armor and out the other side. It fell backward into a pile of spare parts. The third pirate was faster. It spun around with its own weapon raised, finger already pulling the trigger. Maya dove sideways. Behind another machine, just as the air where she had been standing exploded in blue fire, she rolled, came up firing, and put 2 shots into its head before it could track her movement. The creature collapsed like a cut string. Maya crouched in the sudden silence, breathing hard. The plasma rifle was hot in her hands, and the air smelled like burned meat and ozone. 3 elite Vrakan warriors lay dead around her. Above, she could hear more voices. Angry now, confused. They were calling for their friends who didn't answer. Maya looked at the dead pirates and felt something cold settle in her chest. Something that had been sleeping her whole life and was now wide awake. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's how long it had taken her to kill 3 of the galaxy's most feared warriors. She reloaded the rifle and waited for the next ones to come down. Maya heard them talking above. The voices were different now. Not the confident barking of hunters, but the worried whispers of things that had found a bigger predator. She couldn't understand all the words, but she caught enough. 3 down. No response. Something wrong. And then a word that made her smile despite everything. Sekthar. Death. They were scared of her. Good. Maya looked around the maintenance bay with new eyes. Before, she had seen it as a place to hide. Now she saw it as a weapon. Spare parts became materials for traps. Broken machines became cover and concealment. Power cables became ways to electrify metal surfaces. She worked fast, using everything. The army had taught her about defensive positions. But Maya added something the army manual had never covered. The creative mind of a human mechanic who had spent her life making broken things work again. She rerouted power from the backup generators to create electric barriers across the main walkways. Anyone who touched them would get hit with enough current to stop their heart. She rigged motion sensors from cleaning robots to give her early warning when something moved. She even figured out how to reprogram 2 maintenance drones to follow her around, providing mobile cover. The plasma rifle felt more familiar now. Maya had stripped weapons and equipment from the dead pirates, learning how alien military gear worked. Their armor was tough but had weak points. Their shields could stop energy weapons but not physical impacts. Their helmets had blind spots that a smaller, more agile fighter could exploit. Most importantly, they thought like soldiers. They followed rules and procedures. They expected their enemies to do the same. Maya Collins was not a soldier. She was a mechanic from Oregon who had grown up playing paintball in the woods and fixing cars in her father's garage. She didn't follow rules. She made things up as she went along. When the next group of pirates came down, they found a room that made no sense. The maintenance bay had been turned into a 3-dimensional maze of obstacles, hazards, and death traps. Equipment that should have been bolted to the floor was hanging from the ceiling. Power cables sparked and hissed in patterns that seemed random but weren't. The air itself seemed to crackle with danger. 6 Vrakan warriors dropped through the hole, moving in perfect formation. They were professionals, experienced in boarding actions. They had taken hundreds of ships and killed thousands of defenders. Maya killed the first one before his feet hit the ground. She had positioned herself in the ceiling crawlspace above the hole, firing down through a gap she had cut in the metal plating. The pirate died before he knew what hit him. The other 5 spread out looking for cover. That's when they learned Maya's first lesson about fighting humans. Nothing was what it seemed. The storage unit that looked like perfect cover was rigged to explode when touched. The innocent-looking power cable was live with enough electricity to cook meat. The maintenance drone that appeared to be just random junk was actually providing targeting data to Maya through her improvised sensor network. Maya moved through her created maze like a ghost. She would appear long enough to take a shot, then vanish into maintenance tunnels too small for the larger aliens to follow. She used every trick she had learned in years of paintball games: misdirection, patience, and the willingness to take risks that seemed crazy but worked. The pirates tried to adapt, but Maya was already 2 steps ahead. When they started shooting at the ceiling to flush her out, she was already on the floor, firing up at their exposed positions. When they tried to coordinate their movements, she would appear in a place that should have been impossible to reach and eliminate whoever was. Giving orders, one by one they fell. Professional warriors with decades of experience, enhanced bodies, and superior weapons, killed by a human with homemade traps and street-smart tactics. By the 30-minute mark, 12 elite Vrakan raiders were dead. Maya had turned the maintenance bay into a graveyard, littered with the bodies of aliens who had thought humans were weak and harmless. She crouched behind a generator unit, breathing hard and checking her ammunition. The plasma rifle was running low on power. She had backup weapons now, taken from the dead, but each firefight was getting harder. The pirates were learning from their mistakes, becoming more cautious. Above her, she could hear more voices. Lots of them. They were bringing everything they had now, probably the entire boarding party. Maya estimated at least 20 more warriors, maybe 30. Normal thinking said she was outnumbered and outgunned, that she should try to escape or surrender before they overwhelmed her position. But Maya Collins wasn't thinking normally anymore. Something had changed in her during that first firefight. Something that had been sleeping in human genetics for millions of years, back when her ancestors had hunted huge beasts with nothing but sharp sticks and clever thinking. She looked around her makeshift fortress and smiled. Let them come. She had more traps to build and more lessons to teach about what humans could do when they decided to stop being nice. The pirates above were calling her Sekthar Valmur, now Death Maiden. They spoke the name in whispers, like saying it too. Loud might summon her, Maya liked the sound of that. She had been polite Maya, diplomatic Maya, trying dash not dash to dash cause dash trouble Maya for her whole life, being the Death Maiden. Was more fun. She started working on her next surprise for the aliens stupid, enough to come down to her level. They thought they knew what humans were capable of because they had read reports and watched videos, but reports and videos couldn't capture the most important thing about humans. When they got creative, when they got angry, when they decided that something absolutely had to die, they became something the galaxy had never seen before. Maya finished rigging her latest trap and settled in to wait. Somewhere above, alien voices were arguing about who had to go down and face the thing that had killed 18 of their best warriors. She hoped they would hurry up and decide. She was just getting started. Warlord Grixon had been leading pirate raids for 30 years. He had destroyed entire colonies, captured thousands of slaves, and built a reputation that made entire star systems pay tribute just to keep him away. His body was more machine than flesh now, enhanced with military-grade cybernetics that made him faster and stronger than any normal Vrakon. He had never personally entered a combat zone before. That's what he kept soldiers for. But 18 of his best warriors were dead, killed by something his surviving troops called the Death Spirit. Something that didn't make sense according to any military manual he had ever read. Grixon looked down through the hole into the maintenance bay and saw hell. The room below had been transformed into something that hurt to look at. Gravity seemed to work in different directions in different places. The air was full of a thin mist that interfered with their enhanced vision. Strange lights blinked in patterns that made his targeting systems give error messages. Warlord, one of his remaining soldiers, whispered, "Perhaps we should retreat, regroup, come back with more ships?" Grixon backhanded the warrior hard enough to crack his faceplate. "We do not retreat from one small alien. We are Vrakan. We are the hunters of the galaxy." But even as he said it, Grixon felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Doubt. His raiders were the best money could buy. Enhanced warriors who had never met their match in close combat. Yet something down there had killed them like they were children. He activated his personal shield generator and dropped through the hole, followed by his 8 remaining soldiers. They landed in a crouch, weapons ready, scanning for targets. The first thing Grixon noticed was the silence. No screaming alarms, no sound of machinery, just a quiet humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The mist in the air tasted metallic and made his enhanced hearing pick up sounds that weren't there. The second thing he noticed was that his soldier who had dropped in beside him was gone, not dead, not injured, gone. One moment the warrior had been there, the next he had simply vanished into the mist like he had never existed. "Report?" Grixon barked into his static answered him. The metal mist was interfering with their communications too. A sound came from somewhere in the maze ahead of them. Not quite mechanical, not quite organic. Like metal scraping against bone? Grixon raised his heavy plasma cannon and fired toward the noise. The energy bolt disappeared into the mist without hitting anything. Another soldier vanished. This time, Grixon caught a glimpse of movement, something small and fast, dragging the warrior into what looked like solid wall but apparently wasn't. He heard a brief, cut-off scream, then silence. Maya Collins watched the pirates through her improvised sensor network. She had spent the last hour turning the maintenance bay into something that would have impressed the Special Forces instructors back on Earth. The mist was coolant vapor mixed with metal particles that confused their enhanced vision and electronics. The gravity distortions were created by overloading the artificial gravity generators in specific patterns. The maze itself was designed to split up groups and force them into kill zones where she held every advantage. She moved through her creation like a shark through water, perfectly adapted to an environment she had built for hunting. The maintenance Tunnels and crawl spaces she had widened gave her access to every part of the room while staying invisible to her enemies. Her motion sensors told her exactly where each pirate was, while their sensors told them nothing about her. The big one, with all the cybernetic implants, was obviously the leader. Maya could tell by the way the others stayed near him, by the better quality of his equipment, by the confidence in his movements. He would be the most dangerous, but also the most important target. She decided to save him for last. Let him watch his soldiers die one by one. Let him understand what his victims had felt during all those raids he had led. Maya triggered trap number 7, and another pirate disappeared into the floor as a hidden panel gave way beneath his feet. The drop wasn't far, but the bottom was, lined with broken metal and live power cables. The alien's scream echoed through the maze for exactly 3 seconds before it was cut off. 5 left. Including the leader, the warlord was starting to panic now. Maya could see it in his movements, the way he spun around at every sound, the way his weapon tracking became jerky and desperate. 30 years of victories hadn't prepared him for an enemy that refused to fight fair, that used the environment itself as a weapon. Maya appeared behind the group like a ghost, rising from a maintenance hatch they had already passed. She put 2 plasma bolts into the nearest pirate's back before they even knew she was there. As the others spun to face her, she was already gone, melted back into the maze like smoke. 4 left. Grixon screamed orders that nobody could hear through the static. His remaining soldiers tried to form a defensive circle, but the shifting gravity and confusing mist made it impossible to maintain formation. They were fighting an enemy that could be anywhere, could strike from any direction, could vanish before they could respond. Maya took the next one with a trap she had learned from her paintball days. A wire stretched across a corridor at ankle height, almost invisible in the mist. When the pirate tripped, spring-loaded spikes punched up through the floor where he would land. The alien's enhanced reflexes weren't fast enough to save him from a trap he never saw coming. 3 left. The warlord found himself alone with 2 soldiers in the center of the maze, surrounded by the bodies of his elite raiders. The mist seemed thicker now, and the humming sound was getting louder. His cybernetic enhancements were giving him error messages as they struggled to process sensory input that made no logical sense. That's when he saw her. Maya Collins stood 20 feet away, perfectly visible in the mist, holding a plasma rifle like she had been born with it. She was small, maybe 5.5 feet tall, wearing a maintenance jumpsuit that was torn and stained with alien blood. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her face was calm and focused. She looked exactly like what she was, a human mechanic who had spent the last hour learning how to kill efficiently. The 2 remaining soldiers raised their weapons, but Maya was already moving. She dove sideways into a roll, came up firing, and put 1 bolt through the first soldier's helmet and another through his chest before he could track her movement. The second soldier managed to get a shot off, but Maya was no longer where his targeting system said she should be. She had learned to move in the artificial gravity field she had created, using the distorted physics to change direction in ways that confused alien reflexes. She killed him with a shot to the neck, right where the armor was weakest. Now it was just Maya and the warlord, alone in the maze she had built. Grixon raised his heavy weapon, finger on the trigger. At this range, his plasma cannon would vaporize her entirely. Even if she dodged, the spread would catch her. Maya smiled at him. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the expression of a predator that had been playing with its food and was now ready to finish the game. "Your turn," she said in perfect galactic. Common, the warlord pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. His weapon's power cell was dead, drained by the electromagnetic field Maya had built into the room's metal framework. Maya's rifle, designed by the same aliens but modified with human creativity, worked just fine. She put 6 shots into Grixon's center mass, watching his personal shields flare and fail under the sustained fire. The mighty warlord, terror of the space lanes, fell to his knees and then forward onto his face. Maya Collins stood in the sudden silence, surrounded by the bodies of 37 elite Vrakan warriors. She had killed them all in less than 90 minutes, using nothing but human ingenuity and the mechanic's understanding of how things worked. She was no longer the scared girl who had been trapped in this room. She was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. She was the Death Maiden, and she was just getting started. The cutting torches finally broke through the emergency bulkhead 3 hours after the shooting had stopped. Captain Veltar led the rescue team personally, expecting to find Maya Collins dead or captured. What they found instead would change how the galaxy thought about humans forever. The maintenance bay looked like a war zone designed by a madman. Equipment hung from the ceiling in impossible arrangements. The floor was covered with scorch marks and pools of alien blood. Broken bodies lay scattered throughout a maze of improvised barriers and deadly traps. Maya sat calmly in the center of it all, drinking water from a maintenance container and cleaning her weapons. She looked up as the rescue team entered, her face showing the same polite expression she had worn during diplomatic meetings. "Captain," she said, standing up and brushing dust off her jumpsuit. "I'm glad you're safe. How's the rest of the crew?" Captain Veltar stared at the carnage around him. 37 Vrakan warriors, including Warlord Grixon himself, lay dead in positions that told a story of systematic hunting and elimination. Each body showed signs of careful, precise killing. Shots placed exactly where alien anatomy was. "Most vulnerable. We are fine," the captain managed. The pirates retreated when their boarding parties failed to report back. How did you do this?" Maya looked around at the bodies like she was seeing them for the first time. "They kept coming down here," she said simply. "I kept shooting them. After a while, they stopped coming." Commander Zixtel examined the maze of traps and modifications Maya had built. His reptilian brain, evolved for logical thinking, couldn't process what he was seeing. The human had turned simple maintenance equipment into weapons of war using principles that violated everything he knew about military science. "This is impossible," he whispered. "One person cannot kill 37 Vrakan warriors. Not with these resources, not in this environment." Maya walked over to where the first pirate had died and picked up her wrench. "Maybe not one person," she agreed, "but one human can, apparently." The difference was important, though Maya didn't fully understand it yet. Humans were not just another species in a galaxy full of intelligent life. They were something unique, something that evolution had been building toward for millions of years without anyone realizing it. They were adaptable beyond reason, creative beyond logic, dangerous beyond measure when pushed to their limits. The news of Maya's victory spread through space faster than light. Within days, every pirate base, military academy, and government council in known space had heard the story. A single human, barely out of training, had destroyed an entire Vrashan boarding party using improvised weapons and tactics that made no sense to anyone who wasn't human. The Crimson Syndicate, the most feared pirate organization in the galaxy, issued new standing orders. Any ship confirmed to carry human crew was to be avoided at all costs. The risk was too great. The potential for catastrophic losses too high. Military strategists on dozens of worlds began studying recordings of the battle, trying to understand how Maya had achieved the impossible. They found no answers that made sense. Human tactics were chaotic, unpredictable, and based on principles that seemed to change depending on the situation. Maya herself returned to Earth 6 months later, her diplomatic mission having succeeded beyond anyone's wildest hopes. She had not just established peaceful contact with alien species. She had established human superiority in the one area that mattered most to a dangerous galaxy: combat effectiveness. She gave interviews to news organizations, speaking calmly about her experience. She never bragged or boasted. She simply explained what had happened in the same matter-of-fact tone she used to describe fixing broken machines. "They were bigger than me," she told reporters. "Stronger, faster, better armed, but they thought like soldiers. They followed rules. Humans don't have to follow rules when we're fighting for our lives. We just have to win." When asked what advice she would give to other humans who might face similar situations, Maya's answer became the unofficial motto of human space forces: humans adapt. It's what we do. When something tries to kill us, we figure out how to kill it back. When something seems impossible, we find a way to make it possible. That's not special. That's just being human. Military academies across the galaxy began adding new courses to their curriculum. Human combat psychology became required reading for officers of all species. The first lesson always started with the same case study, how Lieutenant Maya Collins became the Death Maiden in exactly 2 minutes and 13 seconds, and changed galactic warfare forever. The Vrakan, proud warriors who had never known defeat, quietly removed human space from their star charts. They told themselves it was because humans weren't worth the effort to raid. They didn't admit, even to themselves, that they were afraid of what other Death Maidens might be hiding among the seemingly harmless human population. Maya Collins went on to serve as an instructor at the Earth Defense Force Academy, teaching other humans the lessons she had learned in the maintenance bay of the Starfall. Her students called her Professor during class in Death Maiden. When they thought she couldn't hear, she didn't mind either title. She had learned something important about herself and her species during those 90 minutes of violence. Humans weren't the strongest or fastest or smartest species in the galaxy, but they were the most dangerous. Because they were the most human. And in a galaxy full of species that followed rules, obeyed instincts, and behaved predictably, being human was the greatest weapon of all. Years later, when alien children misbehaved, their parents would warn them, "Be good, or the Death Maiden will come for you." It was just a story to scare kids into behaving, but somewhere in human space, Maya Collins would smile when she heard about it. Let them be afraid. Let them remember what happened when they underestimated a small, quiet girl from Oregon who just wanted to fix broken things. The galaxy was a big, dangerous place full of monsters and predators. But now it had something new to be afraid of. It had humans who were tired of being polite. And that, as Maya Collins had proved, was the most terrifying thing of all.